It is exactly 5 o'clock now, my time. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We'd like to introduce ourselves quickly. My name is Sandra Grauschopf, and I'm Loxo's new customer marketing manager. So I'm here to make sure that customers succeed as best we can help, make sure they have the right information at the right time. And that's why we came up with the idea of doing a Build in 30 webinar series. So this is the first of the series, and the idea is that in just 30 minutes, you learn something actionable and useful that you can put to use in your day-to-day jobs. And also here with me is Amarbir. I'm going to turn it over to her now.
Yes, so hi everyone, I'm Amarbir. I have been with Loxo for a couple years now in the customer support team. So some of you might actually recognize my name. I might have helped you with integrations and all sorts. But I have moved over to the marketing team as the community marketing manager, which means you'll probably see my face a lot more on LinkedIn. I'll be in some of these webinars and I'll be supporting Sandra as well. We also have Regan here, Regan, I'll let you introduce yourself and then probably get into the meaty webinar that we've prepared today.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen. But hello, everybody. My name is Regan Coleman. I'm an account manager here at Loxo. I really appreciate you all for joining us today, and I'm looking forward to digging into sourcing tips and techniques with you all today. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is going to fill 2 top secret high priority roles. And so, as I know, when you guys were all coming in, Amarbir had our first poll. And so I'm glad to see that we have, a bit of variety in terms of where you guys are all tuning in from, as well as our, years of sourcing experience. I'm very optimistic that whether you are a novice or a seasoned professional, you'll definitely be able to take something away from today's call. We do also have the wonderful luxury that this webinar series is built out for our customer base, right? So you guys are all going to be very familiar with Loxo, but I'm hoping that there's some tips and tricks of the trade that you might not have already known that you'll be able to then just take into your day-to-day lives. So we are going to go ahead and break today's call into 2 separate missions, one of which is going to be utilizing our sourcing tools and strategies to find the perfect candidate within your already established network. The other will be to kind of crack the code on finding someone that might be a bit nicher and that you might not already have at your fingertips. So to get us started, we are going to start with mission 1. And again, that's going to be finding that perfect secret agent within your internal database. So to start this mission off, I think we should begin with what is typically the most natural starting point when a new requisition comes across our desks. And that is going to be reviewing the job description. So our first role here is a global operations trainer position based in Washington, D.C. What I would love to hear from you all on is your approach. So how would you go about finding someone with this type of job description, and kind of what are the key aspects that you might lean into when you're beginning your search? So if you could drop some thoughts into the chat, that would be super, super helpful. Okay, awesome. Seeing a lot of great stuff in this chat. Yeah, so I think, location search, keyword and skills searching, potential title or company for competitors. I think that would be really helpful. And I love how everyone is kind of thinking this through. I think we have a really great foundation to start with. So on this next slide, we do have some highlighted fields here, right? So these are definitely the areas that we would recommend starting a search like this with. Again, I completely agree with the location search aspect. That's one of those definite need to haves when it's supposed to be based out of a specific place, obviously. And then I think that the essential skills and qualifications section that we have allows us quite a bit of information that we can glean out of and pull from, such as the need for maybe the technical cybersecurity skills, as well as maybe more of the soft skills, so to speak, when it comes to the crisis management or mental resilience. So now that we feel pretty comfortable with how this briefing is going to go, I'm going to go ahead and start putting this into practice for us in a demo. So I'm going to switch gears over here into our test database so that we can kind of start working this through. And remember, this first mission is is focused solely on who we already have in our network. So the best place to begin is going to be within our people database here in Loxo. So the first thing that I'm going to pull out of that briefing is going to be the location field. And so as I'm sure you guys are familiar, we do have a built-in location field within Loxo. Depending on your preference, you guys can work out of the list view in the people database, and you can do a search here, right? Or you can also do something in terms of the card view here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing that location search for us. I'm going to drop Washington, D.C. into the chat or into the box here. And that will then whittle our results down to about 14 different people. So looks like we definitely have some strong results here in terms of what we're looking at, but we're still going to want to take this a little bit further. I'm going to pan back over to our job description just so that we can kind of remind ourselves of those skills and qualifications. So the next thing we're going to want to do is pull out, cybersecurity, the crisis management, and maybe the mental resilience and see where that gets us. So one thing that I want you guys to all keep in mind is that Loxo is built very well off of Boolean. We could definitely go ahead and do a title search if we wanted to, but in an effort to make sure that nothing slips through the cracks, because some people might have, a different variation of a title. It might be pulled up, but we want to make sure that everyone that would be applicable to this search we could obtain. So I'm going to go ahead and leverage Boolean. You could absolutely drop something into the search bar here, because again, like I mentioned, Loxo is built very well off of Boolean, but we do also have some designed fields that are searchable within Loxo that help you get a jump start. So if I go over to this help icon here, this is how you guys can typically pull up the support chat if you ever have any technical issues and need to send our team a message. You also have the ability to search all of our article collections within the platform, which I think is really helpful, especially being able to kind of just view it while you're working. So I'm going to do a quick little search here for Boolean. And you'll see we have a Boolean basics article. So for those of you that might not feel super comfortable, we have this article that kind of walks you through the different search operators and the different ways that you can build out your strings. And then we do have these two other articles with specificities for both Loxo Source as well as searching within your database. And so I'm going to pull this one up just because we're working within the people tab. I personally, as an account manager, I reference this all the time. I think this is a really helpful resource when it comes to thinking through different data cleanup strategies for some of my different teams, as well as just how we can build out Boolean strings with the pre-built searchable fields that are specific to Loxo. So if I scroll down a little bit, you'll see, we have the fields that are collated for you for the people, jobs, and companies tabs. And so we're going to focus specifically here. And so what you can do when you're looking for specific things is you can take these and just kind of copy and paste them and drop them into the search bar here. And so I'm pulling out skill sets because, again, we're trying to pull out the skills that we're looking for. And skills is not something that we have as a built-in field. It is something that is best suited when you are Boolean searching so that we can pull that out of the skills section of someone's profile. So I'm going to go ahead and start loading this in, and I'm going to do our first one, which is cybersecurity, and kind of drop that in here. And you'll see that whittles us down to about 7 results. And I want to keep going, right? So I'm going to add the next one. And when you're building out a string, I highly recommend putting the search terms that you want in these quotation marks, right? So that we're able to kind of pull this through. I think I actually want to do crisis management first. I think that might make a little bit more sense as we continue to build, and then we can do our last soft skill for mental resilience. Okay, so we're at 5 now. And then I'll drop in our mental resilience here and see where that gets us. And that gets us to one particular person within our database. which is Ethan Hunt. He's our senior field operations trainer. And so again, we're looking for someone with his applicable background. His title might not be exactly what we're looking for, but as we know in the recruiting game, his skill sets and everything is definitely applicable, and we can transform that over for this role. So now that we've found this person, what we can do is add Ethan to, our job. Maybe we add him to a campaign if we want to get in touch with him about his next assignment. We can also add Ethan to a list. I think that's a very helpful way of kind of collating the people that you have, right, for future use. You already did all of the hard work with the Boolean and working through all of the built-in fields, so might as well have him somewhere for future reference. But I think it's safe to say that we have now officially found Ethan. So mission 1 is complete, which is incredible. And so to recap some of the techniques that we just chatted through, I highly recommend always starting with searching your database. We want to make sure that we are, being active and proactive about the sourcing we're doing. Obviously, some searches require a level of reactiveness if you don't already have that person, but tap into the network that you already have, because you already did the hard work of trying to obtain them in your database. You've probably communicated with them in the past. And then make sure that you are leveraging the built-in fields such as location, titles, that kind of thing, in conjunction with Boolean. And then obviously you can use, lists or custom fields, tags, however you guys use it internally, to then just make sure you're saving people for future use. But yeah, so we have officially finished the first of our 2 missions. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic back over to Amarbir because I know she has our second poll going on. So
yeah,
here, over to
Thank you, Regan. That was so helpful. Thank you so much for taking us over how powerful our internal databases can be. Sometimes we do definitely look at the big pools of source data we haven't got. So definitely good to look introspective. We have set up that poll just to understand how many of you guys have been using that Boolean article. We know it's a very useful one. So just wanted to make sure that if you take anything away, make sure you definitely link, bookmark, do something with that Boolean article that Regan mentioned. And I just want to quickly say before I hand it over back to you, Regan, for our second mission, is that there's a few people asking about if this is going to be recorded. Yes, it's recorded. It'll be sent to you in a couple of days, so do not worry. Obviously, it's amazing to be here live and ask these questions that you've got. We will have a Q&A session at the end of Regan's next mission. So we will try and get through to some of those questions in more detail as well. So back over to you, Regan. We'll leave that poll open for a little bit. Yeah, let's go on to mission 2. Oh, also one more thing, sorry. Well done to everyone who worked out that Ethan Hunt is part of Mission Impossible. I'm glad the pun was kind of there. But yeah, over to you, Regan.
Awesome. Cool. All right, on to our second mission. So this next one, we're going to find an onboarding and training director for the secret agency. Just like we did last time, I want to start with the job requisition. So let's take a look at this, kind of similar to how we did. Let's pull some of the different things out of here that we would leverage when we're beginning a search. And I'll just ask that you drop some stuff into the chat like you did last time so that we can brainstorm together. Awesome. Yep, seeing some of those recurring themes, right? So this time we have like a minimum of experience that we're kind of looking for. So we can go ahead and leverage that when we're searching. In terms of kind of the skills and qualifications, I think training and onboarding in kind of like a management position or capacity is going to be very important here, as well as this unique qualification, which is definitely a little bit nicher in terms of swimming. And then obviously we must operate from North Carolina. So we're going to have to make sure that we incorporate that into the search at some point. So I'm going to go ahead and head back into our test database. And so having just sourced with you guys for the last role, the operations director, I'm not necessarily confident that we have anyone at our fingertips in our database that would fit this criteria. So I think we're going to need to tap into another source. For lack of a better pun here, we're going to head into LoxoSource. So there's 2 ways of accessing LoxoSource. You can head in through the People tab by clicking this blue plus icon here, right? This is going to be where you can kind of start your searches from scratch, or obviously leverage a saved search if you have one and continue building onto that. But this is a great way for both recruiters and business development teams to start building out their searches. The other way that you can do it, and please forgive me because I'm gonna switch browsers again this way, is through a job. And so in the jobs tab, once you click into a job, as I'm sure everyone's familiar with, you have this source tab that you can then utilize LoxoSource in conjunction with a job that you already have in the system. So this is where we're going to operate out of for our second mission. I also want to call out that we are going to be using Loxo employees for this second mission, just to ensure that we adhere to different data privacy and security standards during our webinar. But the sourcing techniques that we are going to chat through and like the tricks of the trade will all be the same when you go ahead and put it into practice on your own. So within LoxoSource, a couple things that I want to call out that I'm sure you all have seen, but just in case you don't feel super comfortable with kind of how to utilize this and like what they mean, I want to start talking about the smart and the strict views. So these two views, you can use these to leverage your search kind of depending on what you're looking for. So the smart view here is going to be where the AI is working with you. So it's going to be reading the information, that you've entered into the job, such as like the title, the hiring company, the job description, etc. So it'll be weighing all of that to help find candidates that are well suited for the role. And just so you know, it does also expand the results to return folks that have applicable skills. So it's not necessarily just looking at what you have filtered. It's also going to use the proprietary AI background knowledge that our engineers have been working on and perfecting over the last 10 years to make suggestions to you as well. And an example that I give all the time, my title as an account manager could also very well be, someone with a customer success manager background, a strategic success manager background, or even on the flip side on like sales, it could be like a sales development manager, business development manager, that kind of thing. So the AI knows those synonyms, so to speak, and will then take those and return results to you as well. So that's what we mean by the expanded view and kind of making suggestions as you go so that no one slips through the cracks. In terms of strict searching, this is going to be the opposite. So it's going to be purely based off of kind of the filters that you've entered into the job and into your fields here on the left-hand side. So if it's more of like a niche role that you're looking for and you don't want the AI to be involved, you can just say, hey, I'm going to flip over to strict and go from there. And then for those of you that are on our professional plan, I do also want to call out that we have some of these filters here for ordering candidates. And so you have 3 different options, kind of depending on your preference, right? So we have the best fit ordering, which is going to use the Loxo AI to then sort the people that come up in your search based off of the filters in conjunction with the background intelligence. If you would prefer to have more of just a standard sorting, we have the keyword matching. And then we also have Loxo's proprietary readiness index, which kind of ranks candidates by who's likely to be ready for a change. So you guys can utilize that on our professional plans. All right. So I think it's a really good time now to start thinking through how we're going to build this out, right? And the same way that we did last time, I want to pull up the Boolean within Loxo Source article that we have. So I have this generated, but just for sake of example for you guys, it's the same thing, right? You click the help icon, you search for help, you can put in Boolean here, and it'll pull up the couple that we're looking for. Specifically, we want to look at the Boolean within Loxo Source help article that you can utilize. Same thing here, we have a list of the searchable fields. And so these look kind of similar to the ones that are in the internal database, but remember that these ones are proprietary to Loxo Source. So you'll want to make sure that you're conscious of which ones you're using to make sure that you're getting the most out of the system. And so while we're thinking through Boolean as well as the titles, I want to call out some tricks and tips of the trade that I would give you in terms of best practices when it comes to Loxo Source. So with our built-in fields here on the left, the title box is going to be a great resource for you, right? Because you can start typing things in, the AI will start making recommendations. All of these titles here, some of which I know may look a little niche, but they are all well known and understood by the AI bots. So there's a reason for them. There's a reason why we have these pre-populated, and you can leverage these. Now, if you would prefer to use a Boolean, you absolutely can. We have a couple different ones depending on your preference, right? You could do a Boolean for specifically just current experience titles, something like that. Past experience titles, right? Or any time within their experience have they had that, have some sort of title, right? So that's an example. So when it comes to the title, you can utilize either the built-in or the Boolean, whatever makes sense for you. When it comes to location, highly recommend using the location box. I think this is a really strong filter for you, because once you put in a location, you can also leverage the radius filter search that we have. So if you want to try to find someone within like 100 miles of a location, we'll do our best to use the GeoPoint to help you with that. Awesome. And then in terms of a couple more of these that I think might be a little bit better suited when it comes to Boolean, it's going to be industry and skills. So for those of you that don't know, Loxo Source is a database comprised of about 150 different publicly available data sets. And so with that, we are pulling as much information as we can obtain and then trying to make as many profiles as we possibly can for you. And so it's not like our information is coming from just one place. The goal is that it would be able to, you know, surface profiles that you might not even be able to find elsewhere. But with that, you have to also keep in mind that when it comes to something like industry or skills, each database might have their own way of, you know, categorizing that. One data set might think that a certain person belongs in such and such industry, or their skills belong in such and such category. So while I'm not saying you shouldn't use these, because I do know that people have success with these, I also think that you should leverage Boolean, because then we'll be pulling that specifically from their profile. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and pull out the skills Boolean operator that we have here, and I'm going to drop it into our keyword box for you. And then just to kind of recall what we're looking for, right? We're looking for training, onboarding, and swimming as like more of our niche thing. I'm going to go ahead and start typing in training and see where that gets us. Okay, so we've got about 27 people at Loxo that have strong training skills. And then we're going to do onboarding and see where that gets us as well. And that whittles us down to about 12, which is awesome. All right, let's go back to our job description and think about what our next thing should be. I think we can now kind of leverage the minimum of 6+ years of experience that we need here. And so this is going to be an example of one of the things that I think you should absolutely be using years of experience for in terms of the built-in box. So we have a couple filters for you. Because it says minimum of 6, I'm going to just play it safe and do the 6 to 10 and 10+ here and see how that alters our results. It doesn't look like it does, but that means that we're definitely on the right track already with what we have in here. While we're talking about this, I do always get this commonly asked question of what is the difference between tenure and years of experience. Years of experience is going to be taking just their entire work history, right? So how long you've been working in terms of that. However, if you would prefer to know how long someone's been at a company, then the tenure is going to be better suited for you here. You can kind of think about it in terms of like, tenure is looped in with the other company filters. So you can think about, okay, that is specific to a company. Awesome. All right. So again, we need to continue whittling this down. And while Anita and Jackie, I know them personally, they're lovely. They would be great fits for this role. Unfortunately, they are not located in North Carolina. So we need to obviously whittle down that for us. So I'm going to use the built-in location field like I recommended to see where that gets us. And we have officially whittled down to one particular person, which is going to be Logan Heck. So Logan is going to be a really good example for us here, a really great match for that trainer that we're looking for. So the last thing that I know we didn't pull out is the swimming. And so we can look in his profile and see, hey, he has swimming in his skill set, so we know he's a match for that. But just to play devil's advocate for just like another example, we can always add that as a skill set as well. So say I had like 3 results here, right? And I need someone that has swimming, I can add that and it should then render Logan because he has that, or just cut it down to Logan if there were additional people that might have also fit the dossier that we're looking at. And then same thing here with Logan. We can then add him to a job, add him to a campaign to get in touch with him about his next assignment, or add him to a list, kind of like what I talked about, so that we can make sure that we're segmenting people for future use within the database. All right, so we officially found Logan. So we finished mission 2, which is fantastic. And I just want to recall a couple of those search tactics that we discussed, right? So whenever you have something come across your desk, I highly recommend that you start within your internal database. You've done the hard work. You have all of these people. Make sure that no one is like slipping through the cracks. So start with searching your database. Then if you don't have anybody, obviously go to external sources. We're obviously going to plug Loxo Source because it's an incredible resource. And I would highly encourage you to play around with the differences between the smart and the strict view that we talked about. And in terms of pro tips, I hope that you guys are able to take away a little bit more information about some of the different ways that you can maneuver with Boolean within your database, as well as LoxoSource, and kind of when might be better to use a Boolean versus when might be better to use a built-in field. You obviously can play around with it because each search is super unique, but I wanted to impart the best practices that we typically cover during our all of our sourcing calls. So I hope this was helpful. And then last but not least, I know we didn't talk about this, but if you don't already, please make sure that you download our Chrome extension. It's an incredible resource for being able to parse information from external sources. And then we did also recently launch our account-based prospecting for company sourcing. We did a webinar on that a couple weeks ago. So if you missed that, please take a look at it. It was a wonderful resource, and let us know if you have any questions. But I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to Amarbir and Sandra. Thanks again for joining, and I hope you guys found this helpful.
Oh, thank you so much, Regan. A huge round of applause. That was fantastic. So many useful nuggets in there. And the comment section has been popping off with lots of different questions, which I do have to throw at you just for the next 15 minutes. Just before I go into that, I know that a few people are asking if you can show how that you got to a certain area in Loxo. For those questions, I'd recommend just watching the rerun that we send out to you. Just for the kind of the time that we have is quite limited here, and I'd love to get into some of the nitty-gritty. So, Regan, a kind of a theme has been about data, where we get our data from, and what should be done if they find outdated data. And I think it'd be great for us to just touch on that, because data for recruiters is obviously so important. I'm talking about contact data here, so like phone numbers and emails. So I think we could just have a little discussion about those things. So yeah, over to you. Where do we get our data from? That's number one.
Yeah, again, we pull it from about 150 different publicly available data sets, whether that's like networking sites, career pages, publicly available data. I can't give away our secret sauce, because then anybody would be able to take the 10 years of knowledge that our engineers have and been building, right? But what I will say about data, we, like I said, do our absolute best to make sure that it's as up to date as possible. But there are certain things that we might not be able to obtain because they're hidden behind firewalls. They're not publicly available to us yet. So I typically say, when it comes to LoxoSource, if you're finding a profile that is seemingly out of date, typically between about like 1 to 4 months out of date is what we would consider fine. Because again, we probably haven't been able to access that data, and it might be up to date on a different site. But once it becomes available to us, we will obviously make sure that we implement that. Now, if you're finding something that's like really out of date, like, I don't know, a year out of date, 2 years out of date, we want to hear from you. So please make sure to share that with, your dedicated account manager. Please share that with Loxo support if that's your go-to point of contact. And we will take that and share that with the team. Because again, we have engineers that are dedicated. This is their day in, day out. They work through the data and want to make sure that it's as pristine as possible. So any examples that you guys can share with us, that would be super helpful. When it comes to the contact information, that has come such a long way, and we're so proud of the agentic model that we have. However, if you find something that's out of date, you can always report that. There should be a little flag in someone's profile to report bad data. And then obviously, if you have any concerns, please let our support team know. But hopefully that's helpful and answers some questions.
Absolutely. And I think Lisa's also just said that as well by flagging the data. That's available to all Loxo source data. So it won't be there if you've added in the phone number yourself, and because obviously we can't check that. But yeah, you can always flag it if it has been from Loxo source. I'd also like to say, if you are finding that another tool is giving you fantastic data, let us know. Like, Loxo wants to be the best. We want to be able to give you the data that you want. We are so open to partnerships. I've heard that straight from our CTO's mouth. So definitely, if you write into support@loxo.co, I used to actually be on that side of things. So I know that they'll be very happy to pass that information on to our team internally. So for sure, with people are now putting in compared data sources, with that, please make sure you're also giving us examples of data that was outdated within Loxo and that you could then find within those other platforms, because it's good and well saying something, but we need to have the evidence that we know that this is a good partnership to go with. So thank you so much. Now we have some other questions. One of them was about Booleans, and can you do different types of Booleans? So could you do location and skill set and, I don't know, hair color? Obviously hair color is a bit crazy, but those sorts of things. I think it'd be great if we could just recap that if needed.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And so I know for sake of the demo, I wanted to make sure that we were being quick about it, right? So that was the build in 30, but 100%, if you guys wanted to do additional things, you'll just want to leverage the parentheses, and then you can do, and I don't know, do like current experience titles or something like that. And then do another Boolean and then start adding whatever you think your search terms should be. So yes, you can add as many as you want to within this.
Okay, great. We also had another question. Thank you so much for that, Regan. How do you know if Loxo is searching just your database or others? So I think we've actually had that come up a few times. So would you mind just showing again how you can click on the internal versus external?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have asked you, but there's a few people asking.
No worries. Yes, absolutely. Just kind of back out of this for us a little bit. But yeah, so when you're in Loxo Source, you can absolutely, if you want to do the public data set, you can, right? So this is going to be anyone that we have within Loxo Source. If you want it to be very specific to just your internal database, you can flip over to internal, and then it'll pull up people that we have. And the best way of knowing if someone is in your database here is this little gold star. And then the other thing that I want to call out, just so that people feel comfortable with this toggle as well, is when you're in the public data set. So again, anyone in Loxo Source that you want to be looking through, you can also use this show internal database toggle. And so this will include anybody that would be net new to you in Loxo Source that you've never come across, as well as anybody that's in your internal database that would be applicable against the different filters or Booleans that you're putting. So to recap, public, mostly new people to you, but you can obviously also have someone in your internal database come up so that you're kind of double dipping. Or if you don't want anyone new to you, but you want to utilize the Loxo Source filters, you can flip over to internal database.
Perfect. Absolutely fantastic. I hope that clears up the questions there. One that's just come through is talking about tenure. Sorry, just while you're on that screen, Regan. Saying, is tenure how long that they are at that current company, or does it show how long that they were at past companies in general?
My understanding of this is that it's going to be in comparison to what you have here. So if you have current and past, then we're going to take the tenure in comparison to that. So it just
Amazing.
depends on what you have checked off here, as well as like the and or the or Boolean operators. So
Amazing. Thank you so much. There's also another question talking about leveraging the list function. Where do we find out what that is and what it means? So again, I think this is something that you already kind of went over in detail. And I think this is something that we could maybe share on the rerun. We could maybe do a frequently asked questions. There's also a help article on lists, if I'm correct in thinking.
yes, there is.
Which we can go into as well. So that was for Sarah who asked that question. Any more coming in? Sorry, can we show where the bad data flag is? People are struggling to find where that is specifically.
Yes, this is going to, and honestly, I might even need to just fetch contact for someone so that we can have someone to look through.
Yeah, and while Regan's doing that, I'd also like to reiterate that we've had to very carefully create this instance that we've got Regan showing, because we cannot be showing people's data. So this is all, as you can tell, Ethan Hunt is not a real person. So just something to be aware of, because I know people were asking questions about that in the chat.
Yeah, and so in the test database, we're not going to have really anyone that we could fetch contact for because, like Amarbir said, they are not real. But how you guys can do this is say this is an actual person's profile. If you click on either the call icon or the email icon, the email, if it was found using Loxo fetch, will have a little subtext here that says found by Loxo. So you can know that it was fetch contact. It was not something that you entered into the database yourself. And there will be a black flag right here that says report inaccurate data. And then you can just click that black flag, and then that feedback will come back to our team.
Fantastic. I think that is super helpful for those who are asking that question. And again, I think we have an article on that as well about flagging data. So you can always click on that question mark on the bottom of your Loxo screen, or go to the help center within Loxo's website. Sorry, I'm still reading through these questions. Okay, amazing. Actually, well, let's just carry on that thing. James has just asked, so what gets done on the back end once it's been flagged? And I can take this if Regan, you're not. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it. I feel like because your technical support background, you're very fit for this.
Yes, it's a bit of both. So when it gets flagged, the data team, we have a very big and focused data team who will then look into that phone number and confirm if it is indeed, false, if it's not working, and then they'll remove it. It's kind of as simple as that. And then we'll always try and find new data to kind of replace it. I know that this was a sourcing focused webinar. I know that data is a big focus as well, just for day-to-day lives of recruiters. And I would like to emphasize that lots of different areas of industries, of like seniority, will have different types of data. So there will be cases where people move on quite quickly from job to job, so their email will change. It's more likely, whereas some other people where their email tends to stay the same because they tend to stay at companies longer, that will be likely more up to date. So just something to be aware of, like when you're looking at this data, there's a whole story behind it and who that person is and where they've come from. Yeah, we're having more questions. I think we've already answered, so we can try and put these into an email or something like that. Or like I said, they're already in a lot of the help center articles too. Amazing. Can we show how to get there again? Someone is saying that Boolean is hard, and I do agree. I think Boolean is a skill that you definitely learn. Screenshotting and linking that Boolean document onto your bookmarks tab will definitely help you out.
Yep. And yeah, please leverage those help articles. We have the Boolean basics for more of like the beginning. We do also have a YouTube video with a Boolean expert that was recorded a couple years ago, which I think is a really helpful resource. It's attached to our YouTube playlist. So I'm sure that that could be something that we get circulated maybe in our follow-up comms as just something that you guys can take a look at.
Yep, amazing. We also have a question saying from Mark saying, do you recommend searching from within a job first before going into kind of your general source?
I think it depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you have a requisition that you're already working within, absolutely work within the job because you already did all the hard work by putting the job description in, trying to put like the hiring company, that kind of thing. So make sure that the AI is working for you. Work smarter, not harder. But if you're doing more of a passive search, maybe you're trying to find like a MPC, a most placeable candidate, or on the business development side, if you're trying to do something in terms of looking for like hiring managers or applicable contacts or something like that, I think Loxo Source via the people tab, like I showed you, where it's not necessarily tailored to a job, can be better. So it's one of those things where there's no right or wrong answer. I encourage playing around with both, but if you already have the role, you might as well work from within it.
Yeah, a great answer. And I think, yeah, it does depend on that depth for sure. But yeah, if you made it, then obviously go through source that way too. I've just
Yeah.
put another poll up, our final poll, as we're 5 minutes left into the webinar, asking about what people would specifically like. We're planning to do different sorts of topics. I know someone's just mentioned scorecards in the chat as well. Do also remember that we have trainings every single week, and we have like one every other day, I think it is, that Dan does. Again, you can find it in the help center area. These are live. It's like one of these sorts of discussions. Dan is fantastic. He will answer your questions right there and then. And then as always, you've got support at loxo.co. But if you are looking for a reminder, looking for questions, looking for more of like a kind of step-by-step process on how to get yourself kind of from zero to hero in the Loxo world, then I definitely recommend those live trainings with Dan, the training guy. Is literally his main focus here at Loxo, so he'd love to help. And lovely ideas coming through as well. Have we got any more questions coming in on the Q&A side? I actually don't. A lot of them were kind of similar to each other, so we've covered quite a lot of them in only a few questions being asked. I'm not seeing any new ones come in. Sandra, have you got any that you've noticed?
No, I think we're good for now. If you do have any additional questions, please do write into support or visit the daily training and talk to Dan. He loves to answer questions too. We really are grateful for all of you who attended, and we hope that you learned something today. Please keep an eye out for our broadcasts of our additional webinars that we're holding. The next one is going to be about making sure your emails that you send through Loxo are deliverable. So email deliverability best practices. We're going with movie themes for this entire series. So the next one's called You've Got Fail. And we're going to be sending out another email blast about it. We'll have a little banner up within the Loxo tool. You won't be able to miss it. So we hope to see you there, and we're looking forward to seeing the results of the survey that we send after the webinar. Please do tell us if it wasn't helpful, if it was helpful. I know a lot of you were hoping for a little more support with your individual problems. We unfortunately can't offer that in these kinds of webinars, but we hope that you did find something helpful regardless. So thank you so much. Jan, I see that you didn't get your question answered. Please do write into support. We have hundreds of people here. There's a ton going on in the chat. I'm sure we missed some stuff, but we would like to make sure that everyone gets all of their answers, all of their questions answered. So don't give up. It's not the greatest way to do it here. Write into support. We'd love to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've also just put the Boolean article into the thread because I know a lot of people were asking after that earlier on in the call. So that is there for you when you need it. As Sandra said, definitely reach out to support at loxo.co. We have people there ready and waiting. So definitely reach out there. Also note that there will sometimes be areas where you might have to wait, some time to get your answer. So yeah, thank you so much for all of this. I'm loving to see all the thank yous coming in. Regan, any last words?
No, just thank you. This was so much fun. I'm really excited about the upcoming webinars, and I'll get to be a participant that time and be on the other side of it. But thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Amazing. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.